What's up, gamers? Welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Beef, and today we're going to be taking a look at some of the best class mods for Baldur's Gate 3 in the integrated mod manager. So new classes and subclasses really open up the game even further and allow you to fully customize how you want to play. So whether you have a favorite subclass from the 5th edition, you want to try something entirely new, or even just tweak some of the vanilla classes that are a little bit lackluster, there is an option out there for you, and they'll just keep getting more and more every day. So we are going to start by looking at a few of the 5th edition subclasses that are finally being added into the Baldur's Gate system. The vanilla Baldur's Gate includes 12 unique classes and 46 subclasses, while Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has amassed 117 subclasses for its 13 class options available. So obviously that's a lot of classes, a lot of subclasses, a ton of variety and a ton of option, and these are all things that can be ported very easily into Baldur's Gate. They're all within the system. Obviously, we're not going to get mad at Larian for including 46 subclasses, like, oh no, so few. It's a ton of content, but because we have the ability to mod, we might as well add some more. So the first one that we are going to be taking a look at today is the Artificer, D&D's 13th class that never made it to Baldur's Gate. So you might remember I mentioned that Dungeons & Dragons has 13 class options and Baldur's Gate has 12. Well, the Artificer is that 13th class, which never made it into Baldur's Gate. There are references to the class all over the game, with Barcus and Wulbren and the Gondians and the Steel Watch in general, kind of being all products of Artificers, and Barcus and Wulbren being Artificers themselves. But you don't get to play as the class, obviously, until now. So this is a half-caster class which focuses on crafting consumables, infusing your equipment with magical buffs, and dealing damage. The class features 4 subclass options. You know, let's go ahead and pull it up right here. We've got the Artificer. So the class features 4 subclass options. We've got the Alchemist, the Armorer, the Artillerist, and the Battlesmith. Each subclass gains access to a unique blend of support spells and enchantments to augment your playstyle. Let's start with the Alchemist. The Alchemist specializes in crafting elixirs, explosive potions, bombs, all sorts of stuff. Replicating it. You also get the ability to replicate magical items. You can create magic items, then they last until a long rest, which is pretty sweet. You get to you use your infusion points to do this, and the same with your potions or bombs. You use your arcane jolt feature resource to use your spells basically. And you get experimental elixir novice. You can create your potions and bombs and stuff. And as you level up, you get stronger and more powerful. Instead of experimental novice, you become a master and all these things. The Armorer subclass specializes in enchanting your equipment to hit harder and protect the wearer. You get things like Thunder Gauntlets. Your melee weapon attack deals 1 to 4 thunder damage. You get Infiltrator Lightning Launcher. Your ranged weapon attack deals 1 to 4 lightning damage and a chance to inflict shock. You gain resistance to elemental damage of your choice, which is really great if you're going into a specific battle. If you're going to get up against Answer, go ahead and slap on that lightning resistance and boom. And then you get, these are the same as up there. But so let's move on to the Artillerist. The Artillerist is really cool. The Artillerist can summon Eldritch Cannons. Basically turrets, which you can place around the battlefield or attach to your bow for extra damage and crowd control, which is really cool. You also get to shoot twice, which is really nice at the first level, because great. It's an infusion that you put on your weapon, so it's like a buff that you add to your weapon. And the Battlesmith, you call forth your Steel Defender, a loyal mechanical companion to protect your allies and turn the tide of battle with powerful defenses and strategic support. This subclass basically allows you to spawn your own version of the Steel Watch. You get your own unique elemental, I guess, like an element, like a metal elemental. But this class is really cool. You just get it's just like a really unique kind of blend that still kind of fits within the lore of Baldur's Gate, given that it's all kind of mixed in. It's just a very interesting class that I haven't really gotten to play around with much myself because it's so new. But I'm really excited to play around with it a bit and mess with it. You can also see these infusions here. These are the different infusions that you get to add to your weapons and your armors. Armor of magical strength, strength saving throw and checks receiving an intelligence modifier, which is really nice. Armor of tools, dexterity checks receive an intelligence modifier, which is really nice. It basically just means that you can use your intelligence modifier to do whichever role your character is performing, whether you're spell casting or doing dexterity checks for like sleight of hand and things like that, or if you want to be a tank and add +1 to your armor class at level 10, you get a +2, which is really nice. Same thing for your weapon attacks. Returning weapon, you can make any weapon, any thrown weapon, into a homing weapon, which is really nice. And with Mind Sharpener, you can give yourself advantage on concentration checks. So, next up, we have got one of the most common multi-class dips in the 5th edition, which is finally being added to Baldur's Gate 3, and we are going to look at the Hexblade Warlock. The Hexblade Warlock is really great because if you're looking to create a Spellblade character with charisma, the Hexblade is a perfect 1-level dip for you. Just 1 level in Hexblade gets you proficiency in medium armor, you get proficiency in shields and martial weapons, as well as a unique curse. If I can find it here, it might be Hexblade's Curse. A curse is placed on your target. The curse will end if you or your target dies, or if you are incapacitated. And an attack roll of 19 or 20 will be a critical hit. So it's kind of like a mix between like a hunter's mark and just reducing and increasing your crit chance, which is really nice. And you get to bind your weapon, which is the real major part of this class, the subclass. The influence of your patron also allows you to mystically channel your will through a particular weapon. Whenever you attack with that weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity for the attack rolls and damage rolls. So basically, what this subclass allows you to do is take a 1-level dip into Warlock as a charisma-based player and use your charisma stat with your weapon attacks and damage rolls without having to invest into Warlock level 3, which is great. The Hexblade, on the other hand, is also powerful as a mono class that dedicates itself to magical weapon damage with Warlock abilities, spellcasting, and the different invocations that are available to it. So if you ever wanted to play a Warlock, but you didn't want to commit your character to dealings with evil beings, the Celestial Warlock might be right up your alley. After making a pact with a being... Oh wait, let's see. Where is it? After making a pact with a being from the upper planes of everlasting bliss, this Warlock gains the ability to heal their allies and specialize in radiant damage. You can see here we've got Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Light, Sacred Flame, and Healing Light. As a bonus action, you can heal one creature you can see within 60 feet of you for 1d6 plus your charisma modifier, which is really nice. It basically just gives you access to Healing Word, which is nice. Which is really great to have as a Warlock. Just great to have in general. And later down the line, you also get to add your charisma modifier to radiant and fire damage, so you can become kind of this fire, radiant, sunlight Warlock. It's really fun. Okay, up next we have 2 unique bard subclasses, the College of Dance and the College of Eloquence. The College of Dance turns your bard into an agile fighter who bobs and weaves in and out of combat almost as if by dancing. This bard is able to use their bardic inspiration to make additional unarmed attacks against opponents and use their dex and charisma modifiers to bolster their unarmed defenses. So the College of Dance is kind of a mix between the bard and monk, which is really unique because it just sounds really interesting to me. So if you thought that bards were already incredible at dialogue, the College of Eloquence, on the other hand, takes that to another level. With this subclass, you basically never roll below a 10 for deception or persuasion, which is incredible. That's a very, very, very powerful ability. Not being able to roll below a 10 is insane. Additionally, you get to use the Bardic Inspiration dice for unsettling words, which allows you to reduce your opponent's next saving throw by 1d6, which is really invaluable because bards use a lot of spells that are control spells that operate on saving throws. So next up, we are going to back up out of here because we need to switch classes. Where are you, Withers? Okay, so next up, we are going to pull up the Druid and level up. There it is. So we are going to look at the Circle of Stars subclass. The Circle of Stars allows druids to draw on the power of starlight. So these druids have, quote-unquote, studied the constellations and have learned to harness the power of the cosmos to deal damage and heal their allies. The core features of the subclass is its starry form, which is a wild shape that allows you to pick one of 3 focuses, being, you can see them down there, but I can't scroll. Actually, I can't scroll down onto it. The Archer, the Chalice, and the Dragon. While active, the Archer adds additional radiant damage to any ranged spell attack that you make. The Chalice allows you to increase the potency of your healing spells by doing either extra healing to yourself or to the target of the heal, or anyone else, really. And the Dragon boosts your ability checks and spell concentration. You get advantage on, plus at level 10 you get to the ability to fly, which is really great. Once per long rest, the Druid is able to use Cosmic Omen. Where is it? Oh, it's not on the, you get it at like level 6, I think. Cosmic Omen, it gives you access to the Wheel or Woe, which is kind of similar to Bardic Inspiration die. You can either use it, you have like 3 or 4 charges of it equal to your proficiency bonus, and you get to use those that many times per day to either buff your yourself or your allies, or to hurt the rolls of your enemies, which is really great. It's very similar to Bardic Inspiration, but it also has a debuff, which is nice. For our next one, we have the Swashbuckler Rogue, a pirate-themed duelist who utilizes their sneak attack in an interesting way. So if there are no enemies within 5 feet of an opponent, so if there's just one guy standing out in the middle of the battlefield, the Swashbuckler can use their ability called Rakish Audacity to perform a sneak attack without hiding, which is really great. It basically just means you can run up to individual enemies and go nuke, sneak attack. And the mod grants you 2 additional sneak attack options, little icons like this, but it'll have 2 more of these, and these will still exist here. So if you do intend to use this, double check to make sure you're clicking the other ones and not these 2, because otherwise these ones require these are the standard ones. So one thing to note with the Swashbuckler Rogue is to make sure that you invest points in the Charisma stat, because this class gains a bonus to their initiative equal to their Charisma modifier. Charisma is a big part of the Swashbuckler Rogue in general. So next up on our list, we have the Horizon Walker Ranger. The Horizon Walker Ranger is a very unique sort of take on the Ranger class. It utilizes the power of the multiverse and the outer planes, and this Ranger kind of teleports while attacking and gains access to Misty Step eventually, Haste, and Blink to both confuse and overwhelm your opponents. You also get access to Planar Mark, which is your own unique sort of Hunter's Mark, which adds 1d8 force damage, which is really nice. Force damage is the least resisted damage type in the game, so it's always great to have extra 1d8 of force damage on your chosen enemy. But this is a really fun class. You get access to Distance Strike Range and Distance Strike Melee, which allows you to pass between the planes in a blink of an eye, teleport 3 meters to a creature, striking them with the ferocity of the multiverse itself. So it's really cool. You get to kind of like bounce around the map and confuse enemies, and when you reach level 11, I believe, you get an ability that allows you to, if you if you attack 2 different enemies with your distance strikes, so you kind of teleport to one, teleport to another, then you get a third one, and you can just kind of go, you can bounce around the map like a pinball, hitting every enemy, and it's kind of crazy how powerful it is. So, the last subclass from 5th edition that we're going to look at today is the Divine Soul Sorcerer, a personal favorite of mine. This subclass grants sorcerers access to the cleric spell list. As you can see here, it has access to sorcerer spells as well as cleric spells like Guiding Bolt, Cure Wounds, Healing Word. So already this class is kind of crazy because it's a sorcerer with access to healing spells, which is pretty rare and really nice to have. It's really great to be able to just have that ability. So the main thing that this class has for it is that as a sorcerer, you get access to meta magic. And having access to meta magic and the cleric spell list means that you can do things like extended bless to give yourself bless for 20 turns instead of 10 turns. You can do something like twinned guiding bolt. Eventually you can do other stuff like twinned death ward and other things. It's really just up to you how you use the spells, but there's a ton of utility there and a lot of really good options for buffing and just kind of whatever you want to do with having divine power as a sorcerer. As a sort of in-between for 5th edition subclasses and new original options, we're going to take a minute to look at the Mystic class and its expansion. So the Mystic is not for the faint of heart. The class was originally created as a psionics-based class for D&D, but was originally repurposed and split up among each of the core classes. It was in the Unearthed Arcana and was put through playtesting, but then they decided to take each of the subclasses and split them up amongst the Rogue and the Fighter and the Sorcerer and the Wizard and all these things. So everybody got their own psionics class. Not everybody, but a lot of them did. Since each of its nine, you heard that right, since each of its 9 subclasses are in some way related to all the others, this class is incredibly versatile, and it's probably the most customizable option for build crafting, but this also makes it way more of a challenge to play. And I will show you why right now. So, when you're building out the Mystic, you're going to want to start by picking your subclass, because even though these 2 things are here first, it can be a little bit confusing to pick those if you haven't already decided on your playstyle and what you're going to do because of how versatile the class is. So here are the subclasses. We have Order of the Avatar, Order of the Awakened, Order of the Immortal, Nomad, Blade, Ascetic, Wu-Gen, Soul Knife, and Unbound. And you can see that each of these kind of has their own flavor. Like the Blade is a sword one. It's more of a warrior. Soul Knife is a rogue type one. Wu-Gen is actually more of an elemental sort of caster. The Order of the Ascetic is more of a monk sort of open hand type build, but with psionics. The Order of the Immortal is a little bit more defensive. The Order of the Nomad is kind of more focused on ranger abilities. It's similar to the Horizon Walker Ranger. It's a lot of teleportation and bouncing back and forth and moving around the map very easily. While Order of the Avatar and other things like that is good at buffing your enemies and kind of boosting and healing and things like that. So within each of these subclasses is the disciplines of that one, and each subclass has its own unique disciplines. Like you can see here as I switch between them, they're changing. And when you go into them, as an example, we'll go into Order of the Blade. Oh wait, no, that one doesn't have any. Let's look at Order of the Wu-Gen. So if you go into Order of the Wu-Gen, you can see each of these different sort of elemental types that character can master. And you get to pick if you want to master air, and so when you pick Mastery of Air, you get abilities like your Psychic Focus is gain immunity to falling damage in difficult terrain. That's awesome. How great is it having immunity to falling damage and difficult terrain? And then you get all these different things like Windstep, Windstream for damage, Cloak of Air. You get all these different things that help you kind of build out your character exactly the way you want to. And that's just Mastery of Air. If you want to go for force damage, you can pick Mastery of Force. This one, you can also pick Mastery of Fire, Mastery of Gravity, Ice, Light, and Darkness. And you get a whole host of these abilities that use psi points as your resource, but allow you to kind of really customize how your build is kind of functioning. So one thing that you could do is you could go and do, let's do Order the Immortal as like a little sample, and we'll do Immortal Disciplines, and we'll pick Giant Growth. So Giant Growth is one of my favorites. It only has 3, but Psychic Focus, Giant Growth increases your melee attack reach by 1.5 meters. Ogre Form allows you to grow in size, gaining hit points and doing extra damage and having a 1.5 increased range. And then Giant Form, which allows you to gain 20 temporary hit points and have an extra 3 meters of increased range. So if you activate any of these abilities while using a polearm and having polearm master, you can effectively have a range of 15 to 20 feet, which is just like insane to think about. It's really crazy, the possibilities that you have with this class, because you can do that, or you could go with Psionic Weapon, and Psionic Weapon allows you to infuse your weapon with psionic abilities to do extra damage, or Psionic Throwing allows you to spec into throwing weapons. Skirmishing allows you to spec into what do you call them? Into slice and dice, stuff like very 2-weapon fighting. So there's really kind of, it's up to you what build you want to run and which then discipline you want to pick. If you want to pick, if you want to be a healing psionic guy, mystic, or if you want to be two-handed wheeling, or you want to throw, or you want to giant growth, or whatever. It's really kind of up to you. But the mystic class is incredibly versatile and has a ton of options, but that's why I say it's not for the faint of heart, because if you then look in the psionic disciplines section, you can see all of the disciplines right next to each other, and it's a long list. It's a very long list. It's a lot, but we'll move on. So moving on to some of the brand new original classes added to the Baldur's Gate mod manager, we're going to start with the Blood Mage. So the Blood Mage is a really cool new class that adds a selection of blood themed spells and subclasses that let you kind of fully give yourself over to Daddy Ball, if you so choose to, in a Dark Urge run. So this class utilizes a high risk, high reward playstyle. And using blood magic actually forces the caster to suffer necrotic damage, but use of these spells allows the player to kind of sustain yourself and heal by dealing damage with the blood magic. So even though you're dealing damage to yourself, by using the spells, you're immediately healing yourself with the damage that you do. So this mod comes with extra spells. These are just a few of them. These are but we can look at them. Demand sacrifice. Up to 4 creatures have spontaneous wounds, rupture, and bleed, suffering 1d10 acid damage and bleeding for up to as long as you maintain concentration. So this is really cool. It's kind of it's just like a damage over time ability, 1d10 every turn. And bleeding for as long as you maintain concentration. That's pretty cool, as just like a damage over time ability to drop on people. Rebellious Flesh. You turn the flesh of target creature against its own will, making their body uncooperative towards their own instruction. If they suffer disadvantage towards all attacks and ability checks, as well as blah 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 blah, and have their speed reduced. So this is also a really cool ability. This is just like it's like command, but on steroids. We've got Rend, which is necromancy spell. Force the blood to gurgle and rupture from within an adjacent victim. They suffer immediate damage as well as blood loss damage on subsequent turns. That's crazy. And the Rain of Hissing Blood. Blanket an area in hissing miasmic blood, causing 2d6 acid damage to anyone within immediately and drenching the area in blood. That's crazy. There's some really cool spells in here that allow you to kind of just do whatever you want. With blood. So one thing to note is that in order to fuel this constant exchange of hit points back and forth, of you losing health, gaining health with the blood magic, the Blood Mage's primary stat and its spellcasting modifier is Constitution. You'd think it would be Charisma or Intelligence like the other spellcasters are, or even Wisdom, but no, it is Constitution, and I love that because it means that you're gonna have a ton of health which is going to be great for fueling all of those abilities. So with the Blood Mage, at level 3, you get access to your subclasses. There are 3 of them. The Blood Magus, the Blood Knight, and the Blood Reaver. The Blood Magus is able to sacrifice their health for additional spell slots, which is kind of crazy. But it's also really cool. Inflict yourself with bleeding to unlock a level spell slot. You pick level 1s at the early levels. Eventually, you can reclaim a 2nd level spell slot, which just is really a nice kind of utility that is very interesting. The Knight, on the other hand, gains Blood Bulwark. Bolster someone's flesh with an infusion of fortifying magic, granting them temporary HP equal to 1d10 plus your Blood Mage level. So you create a little blood shield around yourself or an enemy or an ally, which is really cool. The Blood Reaver is pure damage. This subclass is built upon doing as much damage as possible. You get unarmored defense, and you get unbridled bloodlust. When you defeat a creature, you regain hit points equal to 1d4, increased by your proficiency bonus, which is really cool. More healing. And so this is one of the cool class actions. Your blood begins to boil, and the magic enhances your combat capabilities. You lose 1 health at the beginning of each of your turns, but gain advantage to all your melee attack rolls, which is pretty freaking sweet. It's you lose health, but you do more damage, which is a really fun mechanic that's not really explored very often in Baldur's Gate 3, but is a really cool one to play around with. So our next class that we're going to look at is the Witch class. The Witch class is really cool. It comes with a bunch of really interesting abilities. It's built around trickery and inexplicably witchy magic. You can turn into a cat, you can brew potions, and you can hex your foes with the 4 different subclasses that are available for it. The different subclasses you have access to are Herbalist, Frost Witch, Hex Witch, and Witch Blade. So these are really cool. The Herbalist focuses on potion making and healing. The Frost Witch is a spellcaster who specializes in frost spells. Obviously, you get resistance to cold damage. The Hex Witch is kind of all about wreaking havoc and like doing debuffs and things like that. While the Witch Blade infuses their weapon with elemental arcane damage, which is really cool. So the whole class is just kind of really interesting because of its focus on trickery in a way that other classes in Baldur's Gate 3 aren't necessarily doing. This time we're going to look at 2 Warlock classes again. So these Warlock classes that we're going to look at are 2 completely new Warlock classes, not part of D&D 5th edition at all. The first one we're going to look at is the Dread Overlord, which is super, super cool. You get access to these cool cantrips. Necrotic Armaments, ignite your weapon with the Undying Emperor's Dark Fire for a short time. You get 1d4 necrotic damage to your weapon. Really great. Reclaim Undead, which just allows you to call back your undead servants. Shield of Souls, which is an ability that allows you to shield yourself. It increases your armor class. And then Create Crawling Claws is a great ability at the beginning of the game because it allows you to turn a corpse into... You cut its hands off, and the hands become undead servants that do damage and crawl around. You don't control them yourself. They control themselves and just kind of hone in on whatever enemy is nearby. But it's really great. You also get access to the Dread Cultist. As a cultist trained by the Order of the Dracolich, you are proficient in flails, maces, scimitars, sickles, and shields. You may call upon the Dread Overlord's power to ignite your weapon with his Dark Fire with a cantrip Necrotic Armaments. That's that one. Because you get access to a starting weapon, you can pick a bone staff, a skull flail, or a ritual sickle. And these are all really cool weapons. I've used skull flail, and I've had a lot of fun with it, especially as a blade-packed warlock. That's really fun. So you also get access to Forbidden Lore, which gives you a +1 with Arcana and History. Great to have. Invoker of Spirits, Soul Harvest, and the Binder of Lost Souls. So yeah, there's just a lot of really cool abilities here. As you level up and you hit like level 7, 8 through 12, your summons get stronger. You can spawn in a giant hulking skeleton that has a scythe for a weapon. You can spawn in a skeletal warlock. You can spawn in all sorts of crazy things. That warlock has usable spell slots too. So you can cast spells with a summon, which is really not something that any other summon in the game has. I mean, it really, honestly, in my opinion, it's an incredibly powerful summoner that puts the Necromancer Wizard subclass to shame. It's just so cool. So the other one that we're going to look at is the Remembrance Warlock. So the Remembrance Warlock is pretty simple. It's a pretty standard Warlock class. You get one of these abilities, you get add half of your proficiency bonus rounded down to ability checks that you're not proficient in. It gives you sort of a jack of all trades ability from the bards. So this is kind of like a cross between warlocks and bards in an interesting way, because the main feature of this class is that you get access to the bard's magical secrets spellbook, which greatly boosts the combat and utility options of this warlock. This warlock subclass is generally designed to fit with a Dark Urge playthrough, if you want to, which is pretty cool. There aren't very many subclasses out there that are designed specifically for a unique playthrough of the game. I'm actually going to bring up a mod that I almost forgot about, and is from D&D 5th edition first. It is the Order of Scribes. The Order of Scribes is the bookworm among bookworms. The Order of Scribes is a really cool kind of subclass for wizards. You get to create spells, or create spell scrolls for yourself. You can at level 10 you get Master Scrivener. There's all sorts of other abilities. Your spellbook comes alive and it floats around as an invisible little spellbook that can go do stuff for you and scout areas. It's a really unique class that I haven't really messed around with very much, but it seems really interesting. Yeah, there's the Awakened spellbook. Using specially prepared inks and ancient incantations passed down by your wizardly order, you've awakened an arcane sentience within your spellbook. So it's really cool. But moving on, we are going to look at the last fully new subclass, which is the Spellblade School for Wizards. So this subclass is truly the ultimate Spellblade. It grants you an additional reaction. It might not do it until you hit level 2. Oh wait, yeah, Mind's Eye. Well, it's not there. That's okay. But so yeah, you get an additional reaction per round. And when enemies come, when an enemy comes within your reach, you can automatically make an opportunity attack. So you kind of get that nice little sentinel feat attack, and it is made with advantage too, which is great. So if someone comes too close to you, boom, you're stabbed. Also get finesse weapon parry, where if you have a finesse weapon in your hands and you don't have a shield, then you can parry the next weapon attack. So if you get attacked by that enemy that's moving towards you, you can parry it and cut some of that damage away. Additionally, this wizard has access to the shield spell, so theoretically you can stop yourself from almost ever getting hit, which is really great. So after casting a spell, this class allows you to make a melee weapon attack with a bonus action. I believe that starts at level 6. So effectively, say you have Lightning Bolt and you run up to an enemy and you throw Lightning Bolt in the line, you can immediately follow it up with a stab, which is really cool. Last but not least, we're going to look at some mods that don't necessarily add new classes to the game, but instead elevate some subclasses that were a little bit underwhelming in the vanilla game. So once we get everything loaded in, I will just pull them up. There's not a lot of information to look at in the actual game, so I'll just pull them up in the mod manager. So the ones that we're going to look at today are... can't get it. We're going to start with True Champion. So True Champion is a rework of the Fighter Champion subclass, which is typically only used as a 3-level dip to increase crit chance and gain access to Action Surge, but the rest of the subclass generally has fewer features than Battle Master or Eldritch Knight, so it doesn't really get as much love as the other two subclasses. But the new features for this rework give you access to Champion's Power. When attacking with a melee weapon you are wielding in both hands, increases your damage by your proficiency bonus. Reduce the number needed to roll a critical hit by 2. So this, it lets you go big time on damage, which is really nice. You can also choose Champion's Precision. When attacking with a melee weapon you are wielding in both hands, add your proficiency bonus to your attack roll. So basically you can choose whether you kind of specialize at any moment in precision or power, which is really great. You can kind of, depending on what gear you have, you can really kind of mess around with things and have your character do whatever they need to do. But at level 10 you get access to Champion Surge, which is kind of like a modified action surge, which gives you access to both at the same time, Champion's Power and Champion's Precision. Effectively, you're doing crazy damage. So, yeehaw, works for me. So the next one that we have to look at is it's a similar mod, but it's for the 4 Elements monk. If I can get it to pop up. Here it is, the Master of all 4 Elements rework. So this class is really great. It's a class that's like really fun and has a lot of flavor, and it's cool because you can kind of be the avatar. You can be Aang or Korra, or you can pretend that you're like the avatar from Last Airbender. But it's really not a very powerful class, and the key points don't. They tend to drown out really quickly. So one of the bonuses of this rework is that it allows you to infuse any weapon of your choice with your key points, which is really great. You don't have to rely on Flurry of Blows anymore. You can go all in on a weapon that you want. And it also gives the monk the ability to regenerate their key points with melee weapon attacks, which is really great because then after you use your key points to infuse your weapon, you can get them back. And it tweaks the elemental spells to reduce key cost and increase the effectiveness of spells, which is really great because a lot of the time the spells are too expensive to even bother using. Like Fireball, the one costs like 6, but they did some update here that makes them more powerful, and you can see here they scale a little bit better, and they cost less stuff and everything, which is really great. Not Mod Manager. So then the last one that we are going to look at is a rework for I spelled it wrong. I spelled it British. For the College of Valor Bard. So the College of Valor Bard is another one of those subclasses in the game that is generally underwhelming. It doesn't really do a lot, and it attempts to be a martial bard, but is significantly outperformed by the swords bard. So this one just attempts to kind of bring them more even. So one of the things that it adds is it gives your Valor Bard a fighting style, which it didn't get before. Fighting style is really great. You can add the +2 to your archery attacks if you want, or you can go in on dueling, or really whichever one you want to go for. It also applies your combat inspiration to both you and your target, which is really nice, because now you just get more combat inspiration in general, and it helps you and your allies out. And you also get a blanket increase to your hit points. And although these mods are pretty simple, they just give these classes more viability in-game, so you don't feel like you have to go with things like the Swords Bard, because the Swords Bard just has absurd damage. But these allow you to kind of play these classes that were suboptimal at a higher level, which is really great. And that, boys and girls and everyone else, pretty much does it for a breakdown of some of the best class mods that are available on the Mod Manager for Baldur's Gate 3. All these classes are sure to give you plenty of choices in mixing up your playstyle and making the game feel almost new again. Which of these mods are you going to try out for yourself? Are there any classes you'd like to see modded into the game? Are there anything from D&D 5th edition that you're really excited to get in Baldur's Gate 3? Let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content. Thank you, and have a great day.